Welcome to the Spiritualpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Christian, aka Love Pixel. And in each episode, we sit down with spiritual entrepreneurs sharing their knowledge, wisdom, and tools on their path to authentic success. Let's dive in. What's up, beautiful people? This is Christian from the Successful Spiritualpreneur Podcast. And today we have Greg Wasserman on the show. And his maxim is that life is about time and relationships, as you never know where a conversation might go. Greg doesn't just believe this, he proves it every day in his personal and professional life. As a strategic connector, he helps unlock new opportunities by turning relationships into revenue. His work spans SaaS, digital media, and podcasting, helping PLG SaaS companies build community-driven growth, guiding organizations in developing strategic partnerships, and consulting businesses how to use podcasting as a growth engine. Connect with him on LinkedIn because every big opportunity starts with a single conversation. You can find him on LinkedIn under Greg Wasserman with double S. Thanks for being on the show, Greg.
Thanks for having me, Christian.
Love it. Well, I really enjoyed our chat we had before even hopping on this podcast. So I would love for you to just explain a little bit more how you found your passion for, what you do today and how time and relationship ties into that, especially when it comes to regard to podcasting, strategic partnerships and monetizing that as a creator.
Yeah, so as you said, and I stand by, life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where one conversation is going to take you. And that truly encompasses a lot of what I do from a personal standpoint and as well as a business standpoint. I live a life of curiosity. So for me, it's always being curious about different ways of doing things and how do we think about, but also everyone's got a unique story, you and I, and just hearing your story, how you got into where you do, how you lead with love, and everything about that is just very unique, and that's the essence of you, and that feeds me. So from a business standpoint, being able to think about hold on, how can I connect to someone? And if you tell me something that you're pondering, interested in, trying to uncover from a business standpoint, the way my brain always works is all right, who else do I know? What tool do I know? How can I make a connection? Because good people should connect. But also, if there's a business opportunity, I'm oh, Christian, you should talk to this person because I think there's a business opportunity on their side or a business opportunity on your side. But it's literally just how my brain operates. And when you lead from a how do I serve? How do I help you? How do I guide you? Answer these questions. It's karmatic. If that's a word, right? There's a karma component to it, but it also just it makes me feel good, and I feel like I'm living my true self.
Cool. I love that. Yeah. So let me get your synapses firing by telling you that, my mission is to make love tangible, in so many different ways, whether that's with the agency, with the podcast, or with the tea brand that I have. So what comes up for you when you hear that?
So the tea brand, I'm ooh, okay, so direct consumer tea brand. What platforms? Who do I know in that space? Who should you be talking to? Who should you be thinking about? How do you grow that tea brand? Who are the right people that you want in front of that based on your mission of love, right? So it's the big tea companies are probably not the core user for you because you've gone the opposite route. So it's all right, who's the right person for that tea brand versus the big Bigelows out of the world, right? So that's literally what my brain is firing and thinking about.
I love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
I'm thinking about I'm thinking about the Burning Man LA event that I went to and the tea ceremonies that I had there, going all right, this is probably Christian's people, and that I can feel and I can relate to.
Yeah, very much so. And I think we're all just on a mission to, awakening the planet and creating the new earth as we go along and as we grow. And I want to tune back into tell us about your gifts. Like how come you know so much about podcasting, how to monetize, partnerships, this and that. Like, where did that like knowledge stem from?
Um, so I guess my background is in media sales. So I spent a decade and a half or so selling advertising. And so when you've got in a sense, a widget to sell, right? You have to go find brands and agencies going like, hey, how do I help you sell whatever it is you're trying to accomplish for your brand or your product or your client with the solution I've got? Your solution is not going to be the solution for everyone. It's not going to be the solution for today for that person as well. So it's just always understanding that it's like, look, this is what I'm offering, but truly I'm offering myself. How do we create this connection? Because most of us from our generation, like we don't stay within the same company for 40 years unless you're a solopreneur like yourself or is building it. But even then, you could be 5 years later going like, you know what, I'm pivoting. I sold my agency. No one has a crystal ball into any of that. So for me, it was always creating these connections. So I was able to learn all these things about advertising. And part of what I learned in advertising was selling ads for podcasts. And so that kind of helped me in this career I'm currently in with podcasting. From there, always being a revenue generator, I've gotten other jobs. One of the jobs I got was a mobile apps company. And so we acquired mobile apps, and 3 of those apps were in the podcast space. So that really gave me a learning of what the podcast industry is, because I'm not a podcaster. I'm not producing. I'm not an editor. I'm not in anything on the technical side. I'm now a platform. And my job is, how do I help you, Christian, or anyone with a podcast, grow their show, get found, be discovered? And that is really what I was doing. It's like, how do I help? And so when you learn from a podcast industry standpoint, the 3 questions that podcasters care about: how do I get more distribution? How do I grow my audience? And how do I make money? You start framing like, okay, well, if these are the 3 things that podcasters care about, how do I help answer those questions? And then it was just curiosity of not only the platform I was running, but also all the conversations I was having daily with podcasters to understand how I could help them. How could I help them answer those questions? And that's truly just been where it's taken me into the current podcast space.
Beautiful. And what have you found so far in your journey that can, help creators here on this channel to, help grow their audience, grow the distribution, and monetize a podcast?
Strategy. The number one thing I would tell any podcaster is have a strategy. Most podcasters don't have a strategy. Most are like, I want to go and talk to people. Or maybe they're like, I'm good at talking to people. So they're like, I should do this and have a podcast. But they don't actually have a strategy to it. Most podcasters don't make it past 8 episodes. So they fade out. They don't realize the work that's involved. They're not growing their numbers. So they're getting discouraged because they're not seeing these numbers, and they're putting all this time and energy, because podcasting, even with all the AI tools out there, even with all the tech that you can go ahead and leverage, it's still a lot of work. Take your show for an example, a pre-call. So that's time setting up the call with me, then a call, then it's the actual interview here that we've got, then it's all the assets thereafter that you're creating, the editing. Like, that is time and labor intensive. And so most people go in not knowing that, but also not having a strategy of like, why am I doing this? When I'm putting in all this effort, what is the purpose of this? And if the purpose is make money, and the thought of making money is, I want sponsors, I want ads, I'll grow this and I'll get it, that's not a real viable strategy for at least shows like yourself, where it's an interview based or it's a solo show. And so if you have a strategy, understand this is an investment in my business. And the strategy is, how is this component a piece of my business, as opposed to I'm trying to make this its own standalone, self-sustained, monetized unit of the business. You're missing out on actually, what does this component do for your overall business? That is where most podcasters are missing out.
Beautiful. Yeah. So, from our standpoint, this podcast is really positioned to, show creators and people who are at the intersection of entrepreneurship and spirituality to, serve them with content. And, as you can see that, we also have the agency on the back end who can technically help anyone start their own business if they feel so inclined, right? So for us, it's more a component of like content creation, getting out there, distribution, and growing our audience. Yeah.
Right. So if you look at the purpose for your show is how do I take this content that I'm putting out there and use it to show you, hey, you need to have content on your website. We build websites. Here's the whole piece. But if you think about most creators, most business owners are like, why am I doing this? And so what I come back to from a strategy standpoint is, well, if you have 52 conversations a year, what if the guests that you bring on your show, not all of them, but majority of them are potential prospects that you would love to engage with? In your case, you're like, all right, how do I get people who would want to get a website built? Not every person you're able to go ahead and qualify unless they're like, do you have a website? You could ask questions like, hey, do you already have a website? Ooh, you'd be a great person to bring on my show because now I have the opportunity to have a conversation with you and explain to you what would be the value of having a website and having Love Pixel being the one that builds it, right? So you're using it from a lead funnel, a easy way to connect, but also anyone that's listening to the show is going like, oh, I liked what Christian had to say. I would love for him to go ahead and build my website. So there's so many different components of how you think about using a podcast that most aren't. They're lacking a strategy.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, cool. I mean, it started for me like that too, I would say, without a lack of strategy. So, I can definitely empathize with anyone being there. But I think nowadays, um, yeah, when you start something, make sure you can stick with it. And yeah, you have to find your why for that.
And I think that is a great piece that also from the podcast standpoint, but from a business, your strategy has to be, I'm doing this for the next year. I'm doing this for the next 2 years. Like I am full in on this. You can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out because that doesn't work with a relationship, with a business. Anytime you have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're not fully invested, and therefore you'll get discouraged of like, why isn't this working? Well, it's not working because you're not fully into it, right? So you can't say like, oh, I want a website, but you really haven't done anything to build this website to take the action of why I need a website, to hire someone like you to build a website. Like, I want a website, but you never get it done, right? So you really have to make sure that you are consistent, committed, and when it comes to podcasting, it's all in the long tail. And I mean by that is, if you have a year's worth of content, a year's worth of conversations, that's a year of discoverability. That's a year of honing your practice, of improving your practice, of having conversations, of having your content engine. I mean, podcasts truly are your content engine. It becomes your blog post, your newsletter, that becomes all these different tentacles that you are able to put out there. So your podcast truly helps you as a business owner, be consistent with your business, have the content, the marketing for it. But if you are thinking about it as a lever of, I haven't gotten sales yet, or I haven't gotten a sponsor yet, you're coming at it from the wrong way.
Yeah. So do you have any like tips, strategies, frameworks that would help, podcasters that are currently starting out or considering to start out, or maybe have a podcast they have started already, but kind of give up on it? Like what's something that we can give them to make sure they, find themselves and make the right decision?
Start going through the exercise of, why am I doing this? Literally go through the 3 levels of why. Why am I doing this? Ask yourself again after the answer, why am I doing this? And then uncover and go again. Like, what's a deeper reason? That's usually what it happens. I'm like, when I ask someone, why are you doing this? Like, oh, I love talking. I'm like, why are you doing this? What is the business reason that you're ultimately doing this. And most people don't understand that. So if you can go, what is the business reason I'm doing this? And if you don't know the answer, or if the answer doesn't tie back to a strategy, then start asking. Some people I talk to, they're like, hold on, you're right. I've never thought of using the guests that come on my show as potential prospects. That's an interesting way to think about it, right? So like, you don't know what to ask. And that's why people like me are here to guide you, but also there's resources to go ahead and find that. But at the end of the day, start asking the why am I doing this? And if it's not tied to a business, like financial, but it's tied to love or spiritual, whatever, that is still tied to I'm giving something back, right? So if the business reason I'm doing this is so that I can share more love, I can share more positive energy, whatever it is, then great. Those are all valuable too. But why do you want to do that? Why do I want to share more love? Why do I want to share more positive energy? Is that because the more I can give back, like start understanding and asking yourself those questions, because it will all then tie back to your overall business and your being that will make you feel good, which will make the effort you're putting in to your business, to your podcast, to anything you do. If you have it tied back to a why, you're like, on those days that you don't want to do it, and you're like, I don't want to get out of bed, I don't want to be doing this, you're tied back to your mission statement, your why, and you're like, hold on, I know it's a pain to do this, but this is why I'm doing it. And if you remember those moments, you'll power through it, or you'll find the motivation to actually keep going.
Beautiful. And now, as the next couple minutes for the podcast, I'd love to do a little exercise with you that I'd love for you to guide a little bit, and that is to just maybe analyze this podcast or whatever style or whatever feedback, whatever, like I want you to kind of like do like a 10-minute coaching session with me on this podcast.
Why are you doing the podcast?
So for me, the reason why I'm doing this podcast is because I'm super excited when people launch their own businesses. And part of this podcast is to give people the inspiration to do so.
Why?
I feel that everyone has a message and something to give to the world that would very much fulfill them, and they can make that a business too.
How?
By start offering that in whatever form.
Okay, so your podcast is a guide to a listener on why they should start this business.
Yeah, to become a spiritual entrepreneur. So basically, it is a business, but also there's the spiritual component, which kind of like for me is just like when you start a spiritual business or you are a spiritual entrepreneur, you're kind of like in alignment in many areas of your life, like because you're starting this business not just for a business reason, but also for a personal passion, love reason.
So then, what do you hope a listener, or if we extract a listener, just a person who's engaging with your overall show content, is going to walk away with?
I really put myself out there for them to be inspired with executing an idea they've been waiting on, building a website or a brand, or making something tangible that they have that they have had in their head for probably years, but never actually gotten around to execute.
So then, how do you feel your style of your show helps convey that and helps them accomplish that?
So currently the style of the show is mainly interviewing experts who have achieved something that they're passionate about, hence spiritual entrepreneur. It's a little bit more, right? It's not just like the passionate entrepreneur, it's the spiritual entrepreneur, right? There's always this like spiritual component, like underlying, just like I do things from a heart center point and just like ethical point. and things that are in alignment with me. Like alignment is a big word. But yeah, so based on these expert interviews, I, give people that content so they can listen to it and be like, that's cool. Like if I've always wanted to be better in this regard or that regard, be more disciplined or start my thing in that way.
So then that is a core question you should make sure you're asking all of your guests, right? Like, where is you mentioned alignment, you mentioned heart center. So how is it that you, guest or whatever, do what you do with alignment? How do you do it with heart center? And then tied back to for our listeners. So if you break the fourth wall, you're always going to go for myself and anyone that's listening. What does it mean to be in alignment? What is it? So start asking those questions, but you want anyone that's listening to this right now, right? Like, you don't want to be a fly in the wall. You want to be in the conversation. You, in a sense, want to be Christian, and Christian is now speaking for you as a listener. Nothing's worse than if you're listening to this going like, I'm a fly in the wall between Greg and Christian. No, you as the host are there to guide and speak for your listener, to speak to your listener so that they can go, I feel connected not only to this show, feel connected to Christian, but also he's doing a great job on guiding this conversation for me as a listener to walk away with the actionable pieces I need, the goals that you want for your listener. That is always going to be a key piece.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Yeah, I agree. Thanks for that. And I want to turn around the stick a little bit for you, because I feel you have a great message to share and you've already done so. However, for example, I didn't find a website for you. So, what's the reason you haven't put one up yet? And, maybe people in the audience, can identify with that.
Yeah, it's a great one. So if we tie this back to why don't I have a website is also tied to why don't I have a podcast. Greg, you work in podcasting, you don't have a podcast. That's kind of funny, right? I never knew what my business reason was for having a podcast. If I'm coaching people on what is the business reason? Why are you doing this? Otherwise, it's a lot of work just to do a podcast. And that was very similar to the same thing of what is my website going to be? What is the purpose of a website? Is it to attract people from a consulting standpoint? Is it a resume so I can go ahead and get more jobs? Is it highlight me as a podcast expert? Like, I didn't know what that was. It wasn't until so I kept pulling those layers and pulling those threads as I tried to figure out what it was. And once I figured out what I want my website purpose to stand for, I signed up and bought the domain name, which was, in a sense, a debate between myself and others. Like, what should my website be? My partner, she did not like the name of what my website is. And so for those of you, I ended up going, it's meetgregwasserman.com. Because I believe that life is about time and relationships. And I want you to meet me because I think that every conversation we could have is gold because I don't know where that's going to go. So I just want a website that introduces me to bring you in and listen and connect with me. But then the actual process of building it, overwhelming. I'll admit, this is why, Christian, you run a company building websites. Trying to figure out the color, the logos, like all those components. I just stopped. I sat down one day and I'm like, what is it that I want to say? I'm like, I know what I want it to look like. But in terms of colors and visions and logos and images, like I don't have like a whole plethora of headshots and everything else that I would put on the website. So yeah, it just became, you know what? I created a link tree. The link tree has my calendar. But at the end of the day, I also just drive everyone to LinkedIn. And that is it. But for someone who coaches people, that a website and your email list are the only two things that you actually can own, yes, I should have one.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for being so transparent. And I think that's the process a lot of people go through. They're just like, Jesus, that is complex. Because when you create a website, it's basically you're incarnating a version, a persona of yourself, right? And when you actually create a website, because I was thinking the same thing for my own brand. It's easier to do it for other people. Like when you do it for yourself, I saw this doing this for myself. It's like, who do I want to be? Because we are humans. We're very multi-layered. We have so many interests, I can speak on so many topics, right? It's not just websites, SEO, branding. I can speak about tea. I can speak about the DAO. I can speak about Burning Man. It's like all kinds of stuff I can speak about, right? But who do I want to be? Who do I want to be presented as online, right? And I think that's what I feel for you. The biggest block is putting the foot down on one thing, right? And whereas as a human, you can be multiple things, and you can also it's just a part of communicating that intelligently or broadly enough and specifically, as needed on the website, that you are all these, but also or primarily or secondarily, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's part of it, because like it's hard to put yourself down if you are more things.
I think the other side is the person who's, I'm all business as what I present, but I'm the guy at the club till 2 a.m. drinking, right? Like, well, I can't show my business side, my personal side. And that's the person who's trying to separate those pieces, as opposed to the person who's like, hold on, I want to attract who I am. And so I'm being authentic, I'm being truthful, and going like, if I'm the person who's having a good time, but I'm still really good at, let's say, wealth management, like, why can't those two things be coexisting at the same
Yeah.
time together, right?
It's
And the
really fun.
mind is a person's basically going like, would I invest my money with someone who's doing that? And it goes like, well, that's probably not the person you want. You want to attract the person that will look at you and go, you know what, Mr. Beast, I love that guy, and look at how well and how successful he's been, and so that's my kind of person. That's who I want to work with, as opposed to like, Mr. Beast, you're all suit and tie, and I don't really trust that, but I also know you're right. So you're just trying to figure out who are you trying to present and being authentic with it, and that I think is the best the best way to do it.
Yeah, and also the hardest. Like that's why this podcast is called Spiritual Entrepreneur. It's like you're like with one leg in, one leg out, which you said, oh, it's never good. But actually, like we're in this time right now of human history where one leg in the matrix is great, and also one leg out the matrix is very great. You know what I mean? Like 50 years ago, you should have had two legs in the matrix. But now we're kind of like humanity collectively and individually, we're stepping out of this and are like, yo, like I can be myself and I can actually combine this. I can offer wealth management, or, we have another client that does like Ivy School coaching. So he gets like young students into these Ivy League schools. And he was working for this organization for a long time that does that professionally on a very big and large scale. And now he's like, you know what? I want to do that, but with more heart, like more, you understand? So it's like, you can bring those two worlds together. It's just a question of what are the two worlds you want to bring together and put yourself out for. And you can even put yourself out for multiple worlds. Like that's kind of like what I'm doing with myself. Like I'm putting myself out like personally as kind of like the personal branding expert, and also of course in alignment with heart, made with love. Then agency side is more the execution of that personal brand, and then the T side is more the spiritual side of my person, right? It's called One with T. You can look it up on Amazon. It's called One with Tea because I want to bring people into the present moment, for them to have a ritual with tea, for them to have a moment to be still and really realize I'm more than just a thinking mind, or a robot or a doing thing or a guy that creates a website. It's like there's so much more to spirit. And I think this is what a lot of people and entrepreneurs are finding, especially when they get to this level of success where it's like, yeah, I got everything, but it's empty. Yeah, that's exactly that side that you're missing. You're living in the yang for way too long. You're missing the yin, So there's a lot of perspectives, that I look at things at life on, especially from this like divine masculine versus divine feminine, or combined with divine feminine, balance.
I think what I gathered is the brand identity for your website. And so if someone's listening right now, they're like, okay, I know what my business is, but how do I present this, right?
Mm.
And that's similar to what I tell everyone. What I love about podcasting is you have to be authentic, right? I may not attract someone listening right now could go, I really vibe with Christian and Greg. Someone listening to me go like, I love Christian. Greg was a terrible guest. You can't be everything to everyone, but you can still be your authentic self. So how you decide to be who you are and present it from a website standpoint, who you are for myself right now and presenting myself as a guest, like that is authentically me. And that is the energy I want to put out. That is who I am. And as such, that's what you're going to attract back, which is, when you think about it, if you're listening, what is it that you want to attract? So if we go into what is my strategy? I'm guessing, Christian, when you sit down with any client from a website, what is the purpose of the website? But probably one of the questions is who are you and who do you want to present? Why do you want to present that version of yourself on a website? And hopefully you push back and go, no, we should do a little more. We should add a little more spirituality. We should add some more flavor, some more color, some more authenticity to it, as opposed to black and white.
Yeah. And where are you with your website in terms of colors? Like,
I've got a domain. That's about it.
Say it again?
I have a domain. That's about it.
Yeah. So you haven't really thought about it. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, black and white are always great colors to start off on because they're quite neutral, right? And then whatever you add to that, that is making the pop, the direction, the blue. I can totally see blue for you because blue is like the thinking. Like I can definitely see a blue something in your brand.
Blue is my favorite color, so blue is definitely a piece, But I've thought about, like, do I want the different sections of Greg to be a different color, right? So podcasting, one color, the partnership and business side, another color, the relationship broker, another color. So I've thought about, do I do color themes based on the different modalities myself that I present from a business standpoint. I don't know. Right now, it's a 404 broken page, and I still just drive people to LinkedIn because that is, in a sense, the easiest way to connect. Building out a CRM so that you've got a lead funnel with emails. Those would be a great thing. I highly recommend anyone that's listening. Don't do as I do as I say, right? You should own an email. If nothing else, it is just a place that you are able to gather users and connect with them however you want to connect with them, whenever it is. But you can build 1 million people on any social platform. Doesn't mean you get to reach those 1 million people. Doesn't mean you get to communicate with them. And email is the easiest and best way that you can own your communication with whoever it is that you want to be able to communicate with.
Totally. Yeah. There's this content creator online. His name is Dan Coe, and he has this quote. I think it's from somebody else that says, "Build distribution and then build anything." Right? Because once you have the audience, like, it really doesn't matter like what you're gonna build, right? And once you own the audience, like even like social media, it's like Instagram, we had multiple clients that their Instagram account got banned because, they're into psychedelic space and the health space. And sometimes Instagram is a little iffy about those topics. So it's like, boom, 20,000, 50,000 followers gone in a day. So email is definitely king, still king. So yeah, whatever you're creating out there, make sure you collect your email.
Um, I've lost 2 jobs because algorithms changes. I was at one company. They were at the time, the largest Facebook publisher, doing 5 billion views a month. Facebook changed their algorithm and they went down to under 1 billion views. And that's a huge hit to financials when you're now monetizing a fifth of what you were doing. But as such, changed the dynamic of the company, had to let people go, and then they had to figure out what are the new algorithms and build from there. But while they're doing that, there's financial hits. So you have no clue what, and we look at TikTok, right? They're talking about banning that. It's like you have no clue when you aren't the controller of that information and that platform, what they may do, what they may change to your algorithm, which all of a sudden changes your entire business. So making sure that you have a website with a lead funnel that gets you some emails is a key piece.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, I want to switch to gears of the conversation a little bit into just some personal questions. And one of them is now that we've talked a little bit about, the spiritual entrepreneur, like what is your definition of the spiritual entrepreneur?
Authentic, like being authentic with who you are and how you're presenting yourself.
And why do you think that is a superpower? Like, why are spiritual entrepreneurs more successful than a passionate or a normal entrepreneur, if we can, state it like that?
Because people are connecting with you for truly who you are. They can feel that in their soul. They can feel that connection. They can feel that vibe of like, you are this person. We don't trust the media these days, right? So trust is a big piece. But if you are authentic, if that is, you don't know, right? Like, take certain people in the news that they're like, whoa, I had no clue that this person years later was doing all these shady things, right? But if you are authentic, if you are truly who that person is, that becomes a beautiful thing. Like, you don't have to worry about what is the news going to find about me? What are people going to talk about? Like, you aren't living a life of lies, because most of the time the lies end up crumbling and crashing, and you've spent all this time building up a lie. But if you are authentic, if you are truly who you are and presenting that consistently to the world, knowing that it can change, one day I may go on a journey, my eyes open up in a different way, and it doesn't change the essence. It just changes how I'm viewing certain things. But like, that is still authentic me.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think that's a great picture you painted there, So next question: who or what inspires you in the most in your spiritual and entrepreneurial journey currently?
I'm part of, so there's a couple answers to this. There's the People Forward Network, which is an incredible, I guess, best way to look at it is a network of people who are only thinking about leadership and people forward leaders. And so being part of that and seeing all these amazing leaders doing, how do we improve your lives? How do you improve the way that you lead, that you improve your office or the workforce or your internal? Like, seeing that is all incredibly inspirational, because it makes me want to do better. It makes me want to learn. The curiosity in me is incredible. There's a guy, Ryan Berman, who's all about courage. So I get his newsletter. I use this as an example, everyone. If you've heard this, say it again.
He was on a podcast a week ago.
Your podcast. There you go. So Ryan, I love Ryan because he knows this. I'll text him. I don't listen to his podcast, but every Thursday I wait for his newsletter, and even some of the content I put on LinkedIn is from his newsletter. So I look forward to that. Leading with Courage, his whole system, that is continues to open up me and tear down. All of us have fears, right? So if you can live a life more courageously, that's only a good thing. My partner right now, I'd say she's helping me live this life because she's into all these different modalities, whether it's cold plunges and heats, spirituality, human design, all these different components that are allowing her to live more in alignment, going back to your word of alignment. So we're always looking at how do I live more aligned with what my whether it's my natal chart, whether it's my human design, whether it's whatever test I've taken that allows me to feel better aligned.
Beautiful. So coming back to yourself and what do you want to stand for, once you leave this physical plane, like what do you want to be known for? What are 3 words you want to be known for?
Oh, wow. 3 words I want to be known for.
Mm-hmm. It's a good branding
giver,
too.
relationship. Yeah, definitely relationships. I mean, that is, it was a former client's birthday a week ago. Send him every year. He knows he's going to get a text from me. If not throughout the year, or at least that one a day. And he's like, Greg, I still use your quote to people about life and is about time and relationships. And so being known as the person who cares about relationships, that takes the effort to stay connected, to make people feel good and have that consistency, like that would be a great legacy because there is so much value in that. We as humans need connection. We're the only species that we can't live in isolation. We require connection. So relationships are truly, while they're fickle, your family may not be perfect, your life may not be perfect, but like relationships are what we would crave, what the human connection is. So if you said Greg was a person who understood the value of relationships, that would be a beautiful thing.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that. So with that, we're closing out our podcast. And what are any last words you want to leave the audience with, and where can people find you?
I'd say this, since a lot of you that are listening are business owners, creators, podcasting, have one. Website, have one. But at the end of the day, start building your strategy of what you're trying to accomplish and then go do it. The overwhelming feeling is there, so ask for help. That is going to be your biggest flex. You don't have to do this alone. That's why Christian's here to help. That's why he's putting out this content. That's why there's so many other people out there that you can turn to. It is actually the greatest gift you can give, because think about when someone asks you for help, how that makes you feel. So now, if you don't ask for help, if you spend so much time overwhelmed researching things, spending so much time in paralysis that you don't turn around and ask someone else for help, you are avoiding the possibility of giving a gift to someone and helping yourself at the same time. So I'd say for anyone that's listening, go do it, ask for help. You're going to do great things. Find me on LinkedIn. That's where I live until I build a website. But LinkedIn, reach out. Let me know you listened. Would love to talk. I have no clue where our conversation is going to go, but I know it's going to be something beautiful.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing all that. And the only thing I'd like to add, what I love about websites is the identity shift you see in people once it's online. It's kind of like putting a stake in the ground of like, this is who I am, right? That's why people who are not ready, they're not creating one, right? So
I'd
with that,
say to that point, I love Brene Brown, and so Brene Brown has the whole vulnerability hangover piece, right? So when I come on your show and I'm like, I can't believe I said what I said. It's now out there, just like a website. You're like, it's out there. But the nice thing is you can change some of that. Like it's
yeah,
malleable. You can change it, but like stake it. You'll have
mm,
that vulnerability hangover. You're like, ooh, I can't believe this is my website. Everyone's going to criticize me. Everyone's going to say it's like, but it's okay. Be true to who you are, and that's what's great.
yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Such a cool conversation. Thanks for sharing all your wisdom, all your heart, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you some more about branding website and maybe give you a little coaching for free or whatever we do. But you're an incredible guy that needs to be out there because you have your medicine, you have your message.
There you go. I appreciate it, Christian.
All right. Thanks for being on.